It's week 5 in the NFL season, and this is what we do here on Sports Journey. Welcome myself, Lake Lewis, as well as our guest who's been doing a great job with us since joining the network, our agent, Jesse White. We break down the top games in the NFL as far as the 5 best that Jesse and myself think are the 5 best every week. And so far, I'm 10-5 on the year.
I'm 9-6.
9-6, so that's not that bad, Jesse. I mean, could be better, but that's not that bad. So we're going to break down 5 games that we think are the best games. And some of you out there may disagree with what we select as the 5 best games. But the reason why we did this was because, let's face it, folks, when the Denver Broncos entertain Jacksonville in a couple of weeks, we already know what the outcome of that game is going to be. So we try to make this as painless as possible. But we try to go out on a limb here and pick tough games that you really don't know the outcome of these games. And I think this week, from looking at the schedule, Jesse, this might be the 5 toughest games that I think we've had so far this year.
Yeah, they're very closely contested games, at least on paper.
Right.
We'll see how it turns out. But there were a lot of games we debated, are they top 5, just outside? We actually had about 6 or 7 games we wanted to throw in there and had to narrow it down.
Exactly. One thing we know for sure as we sit here in the Washington metropolitan area, the Redskins have a bye, so
they can't lose.
Yeah, if you're expecting for the Redskins to be part of the conversation today, then you just got your Redskins fixed because we're no longer going to talk about them. So, and moving along, the first game that we have up on the schedule, New Orleans at Chicago. New Orleans obviously doing a great job this year. Sean Payton is back, and he's brought some stability to the Saints. They go against a Chicago team that, coming off a tough loss, didn't play well at all, and they're a team that really believes they've turned the corner as well. This game's in Chicago. Last time New Orleans was in Chicago, they lost. Matter of fact, they've lost their last 3 in Chicago. Mm-hmm. Could this change this time?
Usually Chicago's a pretty tough place to play.
Yeah.
Of course, early October is not nearly as difficult as, say, December. Mm-hmm. So I think that plays in favor of the Saints. Saints are playing extremely good football right now. Of course, it's nice playing in a dome as opposed to outside. Chicago was rolling along. I picked them to win relatively easily over Detroit. Mm-hmm. I was horribly wrong. Detroit really laid it on Chicago. Based on what I've seen out of the two teams, despite home field, I have to pick New Orleans.
All right. I agree. I'm picking New Orleans in this game over Chicago, so Jesse and me agree on that. The next game up, and this was a game that we originally didn't have as one of our top 5, but we looked and we even though New England at Cincinnati looks like it could be a very entertaining game, probably will be, I still felt like, and Jesse and me, we talked about this, I think that Kansas City and Tennessee deserves top billing just from the standpoint that you're talking about an undefeated team in Kansas City against a surprising under-the-radar 3-1 team at Tennessee. Yeah, Jake Locker's hurt. You're going to have Ryan Fitzpatrick, former quarterback in Buffalo, be the quarterback now. But nevertheless, a 4-0 and a 3-1, and the 4-0 is on the road at the 3-1.
Right.
That's pretty impressive. So for me, in this game, I think Andy Reid and the Chiefs keep it going. I think I'm going to take them in this game.
Yeah, usually these aren't two teams you think about, especially after last year, that you would even look at them and think, week 5, this is going to be a big game.
Yeah.
Kansas City 2 wins last year. Tennessee wasn't all that great. They've started well. They started 2 games on the road at Pittsburgh, at Houston, split those, and then won their 2 at home against San Diego and New York. Mm-hmm. Tennessee's looking a little bit better than expected, but as you mentioned, losing Locker, it's kind of throws a wrench in things, but it could also benefit them.
Sure.
Kansas City has game film on your starting quarterback, not on your backup. It could actually benefit you to have that change. Maybe you get Chris Johnson more involved. But despite it all, Kansas City's playing extremely well. Mm-hmm. Andy Reid has them playing fantastic. Jamal Charles is playing great. I'm sticking with Kansas City.
All right, and if my memory serves me correct, Kansas City won 2 games last year.
Yep.
I think one of those 2 games was at Buffalo, and the quarterback was
Ryan Fitzpatrick.
Yeah.
Yep.
So we'll see how that plays out. But I agree with you. I'm taking Kansas City on this one as well. The next game, 1 o'clock start, Seattle at Indianapolis. And Seattle won by the skin of their teeth last week. Yep. You still have to give them credit. They did what they needed to do. You have Indianapolis, a team that I still think's under the radar. You know, one loss, they went out to San Francisco, destroyed them. This game's at home now, and this could be a prelude of the Super Bowl. Let's be honest about it.
Yeah.
This is a tough game, and I'm thinking that Indianapolis really puts themselves on the map. I'm taking the Colts over Seattle in this game. Shocker.
Yeah. Well, Seattle on the road is not the same team as they are at home. Everyone knows it. And that's the one thing that could be a roadblock with Seattle going through the NFC and making it to the Super Bowl. Mm-hmm. You know, Indianapolis, I don't know what it is about them. They keep winning. It's not always pretty. It's not always glamorous. Doesn't get a lot of attention all the time, but they find ways to get it done. Playing at home, Seattle on the road, I don't know why. I feel like Seattle could easily have a letdown in this game, but I keep going back to Marshawn Lynch.
Right.
And he is such a beast. I have a hard time thinking that on the road he's not going to carry this team a little bit. So I'm actually going to go with Seattle on the road, beating Indianapolis.
Okay. All right. So we differ there. And if I win, this will put me up 3 games. So we'll see.
Like 2 games. You're only up 1 right now.
All right. So we have 2 more games, and I think these are 2 heavyweights as well. You have Denver traveling to Dallas. Notice I say 2 heavyweights. Dallas wasn't the other one. And that's not knocking the Cowboys. I think the Cowboys are a good football team, but we're going to find out, are they good or are they bad?
Right.
The rest of the division has proven that they're bad.
Yep.
And the Cowboys could put themselves in a precarious position because if they were to lose this game to Denver at home, they have the Redskins, a divisional game coming off a bye next week, and that game, for all intents and purposes, could be for first place.
Yep.
With a losing record.
Which is bad.
Which is very bad. So, needless to say, Jesse, that's exactly what the scenario is going to be because there's just no way I see Denver and Peyton Manning right now. They're playing at such a high level offensively. Defensively, they're playing well. Mm-hmm. You have to remember Champ Bailey could be back this week. A couple of weeks, you have Von Miller coming back. So they're just going to keep stockpiling an already impressive unit under Jack Del Rio. Mm-hmm. The only thing that I think could sidetrack Denver is the fact that Jack Del Rio may be the head coach of USC next year. But until that day comes, I just don't see who stops them. Maybe Kansas City. I'm taking Denver.
I'm taking Denver as well. They're playing phenomenal. Peyton's looking great. Mm-hmm. All these outside games, now he gets to go into a dome play. I'm huge on Wes Welker. Every time I get a chance to talk about him, I talk about him.
What is he at now?
I forget exactly. Let me look real
fast. Almost 30. It's 30-something catches. Got to be.
Yeah, he's definitely up there. He's on pace to get 100 because he keeps getting the exact amounts he needs.
And I said he wasn't going to get 80 this year.
Right.
So wrong.
He's playing great, and what I love about him is he's not afraid to go over the middle. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people don't. He has 26 catches.
Wow. Yeah.
So he goes over the middle, catches a lot of those little dump-offs, 5 yards and less over the middle, just relieves so much pressure off the quarterback. Mm-hmm. And playing in a dome with a passing attack, I think it could get pretty ugly unless Claiborne and the Dallas secondary can do something. But I think they're going to get shredded.
Yeah, I think they're in trouble.
Yeah, I take Denver.
So we're taking Denver. And then the final game on Tilt Fur this weekend, Sunday night game, 8:30 start. You have Houston traveling to San Francisco. Look, we know Houston's a good football team.
They're good.
They're not great by any means. And one area where they're actually not good is when they hit the road. Mm-hmm. They're going to a San Francisco team that needs to win 2 in a row. They need to prove that they're still one of the best teams, and everyone stops talking about Seattle in their opinion. Mm-hmm. This is another game, a statement game for them to say that, hey, we're still the 49ers. I think Houston's going into a buzzsaw in this game. I really do, and I can see this actually getting pretty ugly. I think this is the game that Houston decides that Matt Schaub's not their quarterback.
I actually think Houston is in a lot of trouble. Mm-hmm. I think after that collapse last week, they're on the fringe of who are they? We talked about this a couple weeks ago. Who is that team? Mm-hmm. They should be Foster and Tate running, run, mm-hmm. and then have a couple dump-offs. Hit Andre Johnson a few times and go back to running.
Yeah.
But I don't know why. For some reason, they have a great defensive unit. Just something about them. They aren't, I don't know if they're not sold on the system or what they're doing. They have all the pieces, but they're not getting it done. And I think
it's quarterback play. I do. If you look at all these teams that we just talked about, the New Orleans, Denver, Indianapolis. You look at all these teams, Kansas City. Alex Smith brought some stability there. You look at all the teams that are winning games. They're winning games, and they have one thing in common, and that's a consistent quarterback, a person that doesn't turn the ball over, but a person that can make plays if you need that person to make plays.
Right.
I've never been a big Matt Schaub fan. I'm not saying he's a bad quarterback. On my list of 32 quarterbacks, I have 24 that I would take over him.
Yeah,
or 23 because he came in at 24.
Yeah, we'd actually talked about that, and I said, no, he's a top 20, and you listed off all the quarterbacks, and I wound up agreeing with you that he's 20 to 25.
Yeah.
Which is troublesome. But with all the pieces around him, it should be okay. I think about the 2000 Ravens. Let's face it, they didn't have the greatest quarterback, but the defense and the running game kept them going.
Yeah, but I don't think the Texans' defense is in that kind of class. I think their defense is a top 15 defense, maybe with the Defensive Player of the Year on the team, but they're still just a top 12 through 15 as far as just getting in there and getting ugly. That's not their defense. This team right now, they're on the bubble. And when I say they're on the bubble, you have upstart teams like Miami. You have teams that you're still scratching your head over with Baltimore. Tennessee. There are a lot of teams that are out there that really feel good about their chances of getting in the playoffs. You obviously, Denver, Kansas City are locks, in my opinion.
I agree.
San Diego's a fringe team.
They are.
They're not out of it by any means. So there's a lot of football to still be played. We haven't even mentioned undefeated New England. Obviously, they're going to be in the playoffs.
Right.
The Houston Texans, in my opinion, could be on the verge of missing the playoffs if they don't fix this real fast, because right now, Indy, in my opinion, is the team in that division. What happens, though, if Tennessee does beat Kansas City? They're in the same division.
Right.
Houston could be in third place in their own division.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's why I'm saying I think Houston's in trouble. After that collapse, they had Seattle.
Yeah.
If they beat Seattle and they're riding high coming into this week, I think that they can actually go into San Francisco riding off that and win.
They could have went on a nice little win streak there.
But I think they're reeling right now. That's a bad loss. When you lose like that, they could have used a bye week this week. They're in trouble. I'm taking San Francisco, who is desperate for a win. Houston's reeling from a bad loss.
Okay.
And I think it could get bad, like you said.
I like it. Now, folks, what we also do is we give you some wild card games, some games that we feel were close to being one of our top 5, didn't really make the cut. We do like to give you some updates on some teams that we cover here at Sports Journey, obviously markets that we have presence in. One of those markets, they have a bye this week. We mentioned the Redskins, but the Giants. Big game against the Philadelphia Eagles, a game that neither team at this point, none of these teams can afford to lose, period.
No.
But a game like this, and including in your division, could be, listen, it may not be a death knell, Jesse, but it could be something where dirt's starting to be dug out.
Well,
to put that coffin in there.
To put into perspective, though, if Philly finds a way to win,
they're in first place.
And Dallas loses to Denver, they're tied for first.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's a good point.
If the Giants win and Dallas loses, notice all these scenarios have Dallas losing.
You have three-way tie.
Well, they're only one game back on the division.
Right.
So they're still alive.
Must-win game. I think this is a must-win game for the quarterbacks for those teams.
Oh, yeah.
Obviously, they're at two different stages right now as far as the season. Michael Vick's not playing bad football. No. It's just that he's not playing well enough for his team to carry his team.
Right.
And he's got to be the guy now. It can't be McCoy. It can't be Deshaun Jackson. Michael Vick's got to literally put Philly on his back and carry them.
Well, he needs to, because without him carrying the team, okay, McCoy, you know what he's going to do when he gets the ball. He only has a finite number of things he can do. You can shut it down. Jackson, you can shut down because you know someone has to throw him the ball or hand it to him. Vic is the wild card. He can do so many things that if he plays at a high level, that offense runs.
Same scenario in New York with Eli Manning. Eli Manning's never been the quarterback, though, in my opinion, that's going to carry your team. He's the guy that if you carry him to the fourth quarter, then he can do some things, and he's got a great, record in his career as far as fourth quarter comebacks. They're not in the games to the fourth quarter now, and that's a problem. You're not being able to see him do what he does best. This is a game that I will come out and say this. The loser of this game you're out of any kind of playoff category. No mention of conversation or anything. If you're the Giants and you lose this game, it could get really interesting as far as coaching.
Yeah.
I'm going to come out and say this, and I hope our New York audience hears this very clear. There should be no circumstance ever that they should consider firing Tom Coughlin.
No, he's won 2 Super Bowls.
Yeah, that's just lunacy. But as far as Perry Few, as far as some other guys, yeah. But the problem is you don't make a change mid-season. But if you have a bye coming up, which they do in 2 weeks, perhaps you make a move here because something has to get done to ignite. Maybe you get Ruben Randall out on the field more. I think I see some talent with that kid, but I'm not seeing him in the situation. Jesse, the New York Giants had a chance to sign Willis McGahee. They didn't want him. Maybe they looked at him as he's just a person that may not fit in that locker room. Right. Bottom line is your running game's non-existent.
No.
And if you don't have a running game, I don't care who your receivers are. I don't care who your quarterback is. Nope. You're going to struggle. And right now you can see this team. People are basically they're blitzing. They're basically trying to take away one of those receivers. Yep. Victor Cruz been playing well, but I'm seeing an offense right now looks very predictable. Kevin Gilbride, offensive coordinator, perhaps he's on the hot seat as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're not looking. They're not playing Giant football, and no. You hit on it. It's missing the running game. Mm-hmm. Everything they've always done is off that running game. Wilson needs to figure out what he's doing up there.
Yeah,
the fumbles and just poor all-around running. Mm-hmm. I'm not. Obviously, offensive line needs to be thrown under the bus a little bit.
Yeah, the offensive line might be the worst offensive line in the NFL at this point.
And that's sad to say when you look at Jacksonville and what's going on down there.
Yeah.
When you're in that conversation, it's not good. But, I actually do think they're going to win this game. I think they're going to come out, and I think Philly was so excited beating Washington and so excited about the system. And now they've dropped 3 in a row. Now you start to question a little bit. And they're coming off such a bad beating.
Yeah.
And you start to question, well, does the system work? Did we just beat a Redskin team that, as we've seen the next 3 weeks, wasn't that good?
Yeah.
Well, I think that they're starting to question some things. For all the Giants' problems that they have, they still know what they are, more or less. So I think that they'll actually go and staying at home here. I think they're going to get the win in New York.
I agree with you. I hate to burst the bubble of Philadelphia Eagle fans, but I do think that the Giants finally get the W that they've been looking for all year. And who knows, and again, in this division, you can win the division. I don't think it's going to be as bad as the NFC West was a couple years back at 7-9. I do think 9-7
maybe
has you right there. 8-8 may have you there. I do think 9-7 is a lock to win the division. That's just one game off of last year's till when the Skins were 10-6, but the teams aren't as good. So are they 2 games worse, 1 game worse, or 3 games worse? 7-9 is 3 games worse. I'd say you're around that 2 games. So you're right, maybe 8-8. You're in there. That's ugly.
Yeah, that's bad, but they still have something to fight for. It's like with Washington.
Yeah,
they still have something to fight for amazingly. Somehow they're in it.
You get in there and you win. Well, look, the other final game we have as far as wild card is Detroit goes to Green Bay. And this is another game that Detroit can silence some critics. Obviously, they came in last week, beat the Redskins, first time since I think even before our grandparents were born. I mean, they took care of some business. Game that I thought the Redskins gave the game away more than Detroit took the game.
I did too. I thought that they didn't even look like they wanted to win it.
Exactly. It was just a bad football game, folks. Now, Green Bay's wounded right now. And Green Bay is one of those playoff teams that we talked about that, hasn't really come out and taken the bull by the horns. But we're talking about a team in Green Bay. It's a totally different entity.
They are.
And Detroit is not the best team on the road. So this is going to tell me a lot about both teams. If Detroit beats Green Bay, I think it's safe to say Green Bay, long year ahead. If Green Bay wins, they're right back in the top of this thing. And you would have to venture to think that Chicago, both of us predicted they're going to have an L hung on them by New Orleans. So if Green Bay can win, now this division kind of clutters itself up a little bit. But if Detroit wins this game, I have a feeling that they could run away with this division.
And what they did to Chicago last week, because I picked against them. I picked Chicago last week, and I did so because Detroit looked like they didn't want to beat Washington.
Yeah.
And we know how Washington looked these first 4 weeks. Maybe they turn around, I don't know. And then Detroit beats Chicago that
They didn't have
soundly.
Reggie Bush against the Redskins.
That's true.
And that's a huge, Reggie Bush looks like USC Reggie Bush right now with the talent around him.
Yeah, he looks good.
He does. So they didn't play. And let's be honest, Jesse, had Reggie Bush played at FedEx Field, the score could have been a little differently.
Yeah.
It may not have been a 7-point game.
Right.
Detroit just looks like a team that's starting to figure some things out. And they're starting to figure it out on the defensive side of the ball as well. We all know about their front four, but it's the guys behind them. I think their linebackers have played well. I think their secondary is getting better. But let's face it, with that offensive firepower, you don't need your defense, just say, hey, don't give up 20 points, and we're probably going to win this game.
Right.
And I think that's reasonable. Green Bay doesn't really strike a whole lot of fear in me offensively. I do think that they're going to have some guys coming back. I think Eddie Lacy may be playing finally,
Yeah, I believe
coming
he
back
is.
from his concussion. So, it's going to be an old school NFC East football game. I'm sorry, NFC football game.
Right.
NFC North now. I'm so used to saying NFC Central. I'm taking Green Bay in this game. I just can't see them losing at home.
I flipped back and forth on this one because I like Jordy Nelson. I like a lot of what they have out there in Green Bay. Lacy coming back, and I started thinking about what Lacy did before he played Washington, and the Washington defense, whatever you did against them doesn't count in my mind after what I've seen. Lacy didn't play all that wonderfully before that. So without the run game, I'm going to stick with Detroit. I'm afraid to pick against them again after last week, so I'm going to go Detroit.
All right, so we have a flip-flop on that as well. Great games. Listen, if there ever was a bye week for this town, this is the week because there are other games that now you get a chance to see. We didn't even mention the Ravens, at Miami. That's another good football game.
And you briefly mentioned New England, Cincinnati. That's going to be a good game.
Real quickly, you taking Baltimore or Miami?
I hate to say it, Miami.
I'm taking Miami.
I've been riding Miami all year, and they haven't let me down.
I think they fared better than what they looked like the other night. They still showed me some things they could do. Mike Wallace dropped a bomb in that game.
Yeah.
As far as New England, Cincinnati, I'm taking New England, and I'm actually taking them big.
I'm actually going to go the other way. I was torn on this. I'm going Cincinnati. I don't know why I keep doing this. I keep jumping on the Cincinnati bandwagon. I keep thinking they're going to be there. I keep picking them. I think
that's a choppy bus ride right now.
I think they're great when they're playing well. They are a great team. I think that they can be AFC, championship caliber. Not going to Super Bowl, but deep in the playoffs. But when they're bad, they're bad.
Yeah, I don't know. It's sad to say this. I think Cincinnati's haunted by no culture. They had the Kenny Anderson days and Boomer Esiason a couple times. But for the most part, people remember the Bengals from the Icky Shuffle, stuff like comical stuff, not just good football.
Right.
And I think right now they're a football team that they don't really have a winning identity.
No.
And they're trying to find it, like, how good can they be? If they beat New England, a team that obviously has Super Bowl aspirations, and they have a chance to be really good.
They're in the mix.
Yeah, but I don't see it.
But they can win that division, too. Look at what's going on in their division. Pittsburgh is down and down. Cleveland's looking pretty.
Cleveland looks better.
They're looking
they do.
Decent.
They had lost their quarterback, and Whedon came in and looked good.
Looked good again.
He did. Ravens, Super Bowl champs, not sure about them.
I was sold on. After week one, I wasn't so sure. Next 2 weeks, they started looking great, and I pick them, and then they drop off. So, and we don't know what we have in them. So Cincinnati is right there in that division.
They are. It's going to get very interesting, folks.
Yep.
We'll find out how our Week 5 top games in the NFL come out right here with Jesse and myself. Have a good one.